right, so I'm thrilled to start this next section of the Global ADHD Conference. We've got Ruari Fairbairns here. He's from 1 Year No Beer. He has ADHD and he's fantastic and incredibly interesting. And I'm going to welcome him now. So welcome, Ruari.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you. And hello, everyone.
And just before this, I asked you, I did the technical, how do I say your name? You gave me a wonderful reference.
Yes. Well, pretty much since I was 14, I've been telling people it's like brewery without the B, and always comparing my name to alcohol and my life to alcohol and everything else. So kind of either irony or destiny that I ended up with 1 Year No Beer. I don't know. You decide. But you pronounced it beautifully, Ruari Fairbairns.
Thank you. I mean, good job.
I think even you channeled your inner Scotsman as well with the Fairbairns bit. So well done.
I appreciate it very much. So Ruari Brewery, 1 Year No Beer. So would you tell me to everyone, what is 1 Year No Beer?
Well, 1 Year No Beer was launched a good nearly 9 years ago now, as an alternative to what is out there in a more sort of preventative fashion, right? To help change the conversation around alcohol. That ultimately, what was out there was you needed to reach rock bottom or have a serious problem or have a real issue with alcohol in order to get help. And maybe you didn't need help anyway, but we wanted to just turn it into something cool and fun and funky to do. Like, hey, I'm doing a Tough Mudder, I'm doing this challenge. And so that's kind of what we came up with this idea of 1 Year No Beer some 8-9 years ago. We have multiple challenges. So we have a 28-day challenge, a 90-day challenge, a 365-day challenge. And we support people daily, content, all of using NLP and positive psychology and the latest sort of behavior change techniques to sort of start thinking about their relationship with alcohol differently. And over the years, we've developed more programs and things like that. And our real flagship program now is called Complete Control. It's all around helping people get control of their relationship with alcohol. We saw from years and tens of thousands of people, years of studies, that people are actually searching for control of their drinking years before they get to the place where they think, I'm going to have to stop. In fact, for many people, it's a shame. It's that they actually get to this place where they're like, no, it has to be nothing for me. It's become a problem and it has to be nothing. And I say it's a shame, but in reality, alcohol is not good for us, but it is very prevalent in society. So really, we wanted to help people find control and, if you like, avert a more serious relationship with alcohol, ultimately to make some changes into their life, the things around them, so that alcohol kind of becomes less of a feature. And that's kind of what we're focused on today.
Now, I'm going to ask you how you came up with 1 Year No Beer, but it'd be great to start with your ADHD story, because you have ADHD. How did you find out?
Well, I mean, I was born at 10 million miles an hour, as my mum would tell you, and she would say that I slept 4 hours in every 24, and from a lot of ADHD, or some ADHD research and science is that actually ADHD and sleep deprivation are very linked, and ADHD can be caused in sleep deprivation in babies, and all sorts of interesting research around that. But I was mega hyperactive and acting out and part of a big family. And I think 6 years old, my parents were given an ultimatum, and that was drugs or counselling. And back then, really on the Isle of Mull, in a tiny island in Scotland, population 2,000 people, same size as the M25, they really didn't know what ADHD was. So it was being labeled as hyperactive and hyperactivity. But all the signs that we know now today of ADHD, and later in life, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And I really struggled, I was constantly acting out, constantly misbehaving. I couldn't sit still. And so back then, and maybe you'll resonate with this, it was like more discipline and throw more rulers at his head and force him to sit still and, tell everyone he's a bad boy. And what that sort of created inside my head, I know, was this sort of division for myself, that I didn't really fit in. I didn't really understand everyone else. I went at 10 million miles an hour, but I knew part of me, I must be bad, I must be naughty. So I kind of played into that, you know, a lot of disruptive behavior. Like, I discovered pretty early on that if you're in a big family and you don't get attention, if you set something on fire, you get a lot of attention. And so I kind of went about setting things on fire for a while, which is, you know, a bit of a aggressive description, but you get what I mean. And through this time, I struggled more. And the first time I attempted suicide, I was 13 years old. I tried to commit suicide, and that ended up in stomach pumping. And then slightly later, at 14, I actually attempted to hang myself. And it was a bit of a miracle that I survived. My parents actually came back early from their anniversary dinner. What a selfish, or what a crazy time to think. Selfish is the wrong word, apologies. They came back at that moment. So coming from that, my parents were kind of desperate for me to see what they saw, right? Which was, they believed I was special. They believed I was unique. They believed I was gifted. But the world out there did not see that, right? The world out there called me bad and disruptive and, you know, naughty kid. And it created, honestly, it created a divide, like a split inside me almost. And people say, you know, recognize this sort of bipolarness of being one and being the other. I struggled with that for a long time in my life. And it wasn't until, you know, into my teens and 20s, I met alcohol. And alcohol was such an amazing tool for switching off the brain. Later I met drugs, and another great tool for trying to calm down that brain of mine. But while I was doing all of that, I was also very determined. I set up my first business when I was 15 years old, coming out of school, which actually was inspired. I missed out that part. My parents encouraged me to write a letter to somebody to give me hope. You know, my dad was very big on hope being something that can pull somebody out of any situation. And they were desperate for me to make some kind of change. So they encouraged me to write a letter to somebody who inspired me. My dad's called Richard, and he had a recording studio. So I wrote a letter to Richard Branson. And I said, I'm going to change the world one day. I'm looking forward to having lunch with you. I know, from the Isle of Mull, kind of crazy thinking, but I think that's some of the thinking that comes with ADHD. Like, we don't fit in and we feel unique. We know we're unique. We know we've got something bigger in us. We know we've got more energy and we get more done. And we're just like, we're machines when we're channeled. But when we're not channeled, it can be incredibly disruptive. So I tried all these different businesses and ended up getting, you know, contestant number 15 on The Apprentice after setting up multiple businesses, and then ended up becoming an oil broker in London. And for me, becoming an oil broker in London is where two worlds collided, right? Partying and being successful. The more I partied, the more successful I became. And I became very successful. But it fit right into that ADHD style behavior. I could gear up my central nervous system into total hyperactivity mode, and then I could just offload it all with booze and alcohol, but I'd still be working. I'd still be building my business. So it kind of got really into that. And I think the big change for me was in 2013, and I stumbled across what you will all now know as the app called Headspace. It was very early back then. It was still Andy Puddicombe in all of the videos. And I started meditating on the train to and from work every day, like using it as the gap between who I was at home and who I needed to be to thrive and survive in the city. And building that gap, this scratching started to come into my head, this little gnawing back here. And the gnawing was, alcohol is holding you back. And, you know, I didn't want to listen to it. I built a hugely successful career. I had all the cars and the houses and the wife, and it was just like all of that stuff. And yet this gnawing in the back of my head was just like, alcohol is causing you more trouble than you realize. So I approached my boss after thinking about this for some time, and I said, I'm thinking about taking a break from alcohol. And he nearly fell off his chair. He was like, you are committing commercial suicide if you stop drinking. And so I, from that moment, I was like, wow, I can't believe this. I've built up this career. I don't just want to let it all go and disappear. So I decided it took me about 6 months to pluck up the courage. And then I decided to take a break from alcohol. And that is when, honestly, everything transformed, right? Everything got better, fitter, faster, healthier, happier, better dad, better husband, all of those things. And what I know now really is that think of alcohol like the keystone habit, right? The keystone of a bridge, right? That keystone is what keeps that archway up. Now, alcohol holds up all the bad habits. Yeah, you drink alcohol and then you sleep poorly and you want to eat a kebab and you can't be bothered to go to the gym and exercise and you don't meditate and you don't do your things and sod all your goals and bloody life sucks anyway, right? As an example. But if you remove that, right, the actual being alcohol free or removing alcohol, changing your relationship with alcohol to a better place, that holds in place the good habits. Suddenly you want to exercise, you want to meditate, you want to look after yourself, you want to eat right, and suddenly it's not the difference between 1 and 2, it's the polar opposite differences just by removing this one thing. So that's what got me super, super passionate about it. I looked out there and I was like, there's nothing out here for me. When I'd been drinking quite a lot as an oil broker, and I never had a problem. I wasn't drinking every day. It wasn't anything like that. I was just part of my job. I had a counselor and they said, you should go to some AA meetings. And I went and I was like, I'm nothing like this. I just don't resonate with this, having gone off the edge and the whole of life destroyed. So it caused me to not change. It caused me to ignore it. Like, I'm not that bad. I'm okay. Society says I'm fine. I don't drink that much. It's normal. So that stopped me from changing. And I was like, how do I turn this into a more open conversation, a more easy to reach thing where people can just say, hey, I'm just challenging myself, right? Walk into the pub and the guys are like, hey, do you want a beer? And you'd be like, no, I'm just doing a 90-day challenge to change my relationship with alcohol. And I'm running a half marathon and I just need to train and focus on that. And it's like, okay, cool. Nice one. Well done for your training. Good luck with that. And it removed all that peer pressure. It removed all that nonsense. And that was kind of the idea to build out 1 Year No Beer in the first instance. So I think coming back through all of this story, I just want to link back to a couple of things I mentioned, is what I really realize now or recognize now is that because of our busy brains as ADHD, way more busy than before, that is the well-known ingrained tool in society to switch off a busy brain. So this is why we see so many people who have ADHD, think they're ADHD, undiagnosed ADHD, rely on things like drugs and alcohol, is because of that busyness inside there. And we can talk more about all of the links into the central nervous system and how we calm this stuff down. But when I removed that, when I removed the alcohol, this is what allowed this calmness to suddenly come in. And it allowed all of those other good techniques, all of those good practices to fall into place, which is why it was so transformational for me. So this is something I'm very passionate about, in all of our programs, but helping people understand. So many people are using alcohol to numb out that ADHD-ness, when in reality, it's actually exacerbating it, it's making it worse, it's driving so many of those behaviors, and it's the one thing that we can do that can significantly help. So yeah. Oh, I haven't got your audio. Is it me?
No, that was me. For those that don't know, for some reason right now, someone's decided to take up drumming just right behind me. So I muted it whilst I'm off. That was wonderful. You're the best, wonderful interviewee. Like told your story incredibly well and succinctly and gosh, man, okay. That was it was obviously heartbreaking, talking about your childhood and being naughty that stems on your own, on your own life. Like that's, I really, really feel for you.
It's a dark place.
Yeah, and obviously we know.
I think so many. One thing is, I think a lot of people don't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand what happens when somebody really gets into that place. And I think there's a lot of judgment on it. Was it an attention-seeking thing, or did the person this, or how selfish? I actually use that word, and it's something I'm really, really against, because of course it's not a selfish act. This is completely the opposite. Once you get yourself into that frame, you're the issue, you're the problem, you're the reason why everybody else is messed up. It's feeling like it's like you're the issue and wanting to exit. And I think I think the biggest thing or part in here is, I speak to people every single day, and they're, the people who are on antidepressants in this country, it's absolutely insane. And, the quality of research or actual credibility of what these antidepressants do versus the conversation with the doctor being like, okay, I'm depressed and I'm anxious. Okay, how much alcohol are you drinking? I'm just curious because alcohol is a depressant and it creates anxiety. Right. So let's just get rid of the alcohol for a bit, focus on your sleep and your exercise and meditation, and then let's have another conversation and see if you need medication. So we went down a different story
we
there.
did. Like, shocker to two people with ADHD tangent off. It's certainly something we see with ADHD. We see a lot of diagnosis of anxiety and depression when underlying there's a significance of ADHD, and in terms of suicide, we have some really difficult figures that we have to look at. We have 1 in 10 men or boys with ADHD will at some point try and take their own life, and it's 1 in 4 women or girls. And it's that's an expression of how difficult ADHD is. The compounding aspects, which you were talking to in your childhood, how the different aspects come together, and it's very, 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 very hard. I probably have to say, like, I'm not sure I've seen much and something I wanted to talk to is the reason we're talking, which is that the chairperson of ADHD UK, Neil Mankey, he has done the 1 year no beer program, I think, and he's found it incredibly significant for him.
Yeah.
Something I've also found in interviews and in talking to people with ADHD is that we have a percentage who continue drinking, but we do have a percentage who get a diagnosis and they stop drinking. Like as part of the conference, we've got Shappy. And the reason I'm stumbling is because I know that she wants to opt to stop being called Shappy, so it's Shaparak Korsandi. Her book still says Shappy as the author. Just so I'm allowed some leeway here.
Have a word.
But I do want to respect her choices. But certainly
sending mixed messages here.
She talked about she used to use alcohol in social situations because of the overwhelm. She found them very difficult, very overwhelming, and alcohol took that away. And when she was diagnosed, she was getting support for ADHD, she recognized that and wanted to step away from it. Tanya Bardsley is similar, who was interviewed at the last conference. She actually talked also about trying to take her own life as a child. And at the end of the interview, I have a sort of traditional question, which assuming we have time, or we're doing, and which is not to answer it now. I'm trying. No, I don't fire your neurons, so you spend the whole time thinking up your answer.
It's easy. You cut me open, I'll say the same thing, so don't worry.
Fair enough.
Try not to cut me open, but you know what I mean.
I have no plans. But the question is, like, what's your ADHD? What's the as a result of your ADHD? What's the worst thing that's happened to you? What's the best thing? And we always try. No, don't answer it yet. You're doing it at the end.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Question now.
But she said the worst thing was she was after she tried to take her own life the first time. She woke up in hospital to see her parents, and she realised at that point her parents knew how she was feeling, how she was. What was that moment like for you?
I remember, I remember with my dad, desperate. I mean, he was desperate. Yeah, you're going to get me now. So yeah, I think it was, yeah. Sorry.
I'm not
1
trying to
minute.
put you on the spot. If you want to move
Yeah.
on,
No, it's
you can
okay.
move
It's
on.
just yeah. My dad always had unbelievable faith and love. Which I'm so lucky to have. You know, I'm so grateful to have. And he had the most amazing vision with me. I say for me because it sounds like the parent wants you to be something. And that wasn't how he was. He was just there by my side and encouraging and wanting and incredibly supportive. And I think it was so hard for him to see me wanting to leave, you know, and he couldn't really understand it, and he wanted to, and he was a very compassionate man. You know, my dad supported my journey, and we went into business together with the first business, and we tried to make that work, and it was an absolute flop. The pair of us together, it was hilarious. But when I came onto this thing, you know, he was such a huge champion and supporter for what I was doing here, you know, building this organization. And I think this organization was the very expression of me, that energy, the force, you know, the force for good. And I think that's what he saw. He saw inside, which was that I was a huge force for good. I'm not going to be able to pick this back up again. Just okay, I'm there. So he saw I was a huge force for good, and that it was more about unleashing that energy in the right form. And I tried a long time putting that energy into oil broking, and I sat every day making money for myself, and it made me fucking miserable. It made me, excuse my language, it made me so miserable. It was toxic to my soul, and you know, I built these things in this kind of house and all of that crap, and I was just miserable because inside was this expression for good, this enormous energy, this soul to want to make a positive impact on the world and to want to help people and support people through the journey. And I think, you know, all sorts of things happened. You know, when I first had this business growing very largely, it started to grow pretty quickly, and I was still working as an oil broker. You know, I sent a tweet to a journalist, like you was talking about getting featured on the BBC. And next minute, I was having a 10-minute feature on BBC World News in 200 countries about the program we were building. And a friend of mine actually messaged me, having watched it in Italy, and he said, Ruari, I'm actually as part of a team that are going to meet the Dalai Lama next week. Do you want to come with us? And literally a week later, I was supposed to be at this event and somewhere completely irrelevant and backstage. And if you believe in the power of doing good, and when you're doing good, things shift for you, and I do believe in that. Next minute, completely out of the blue, I'm on the stage asking the Dalai Lama a question in front of thousands of people in the center of Pisa. Really shouldn't have been there. And I asked him a question, and his answer was, it literally struck me. That was the moment I knew I was 100% connected to my purpose as a human being. Very emotional getting off the stage. I went in on Monday morning back to my very well paid oil broking job, and handed in my notice. And my boss was like, look, you don't need to do this. You've built a successful career, successful desk. You can coast. You can do these two things on the side. And I was like, I can't spend another day doing this when there's a greater purpose here. And so jumped into this full speed. And, you know, One Year No Beer as an organization is...
Wait. What did he say to you? I can skip that very important bit.
Yeah. I said, we help people all over the world change their relationship with the people wanted me to say addictions, but we don't usually use that word because I think that makes people leave the room. But we help people change their relationship with addictions using what Tibetan and Buddhist people have known for years, because meditation is a core part of the program. What would you say to somebody who's trying to change their relationship with addiction? And he said something along the lines of, I don't know what to do to help somebody who's always addicted. That's not my place. I believe in people like you who are doing the good work. And for that, I'm very grateful for the work that you are doing in this world. And he said, but what we have to do is teach our children to feel emotion. And this is his really big thing. This is his, like, if you look at anything from the Dalai Lama, he's very strong in trying to help people, to help their children feel their emotions, and thinks that is what is going to help us heal. Of course, it's really important to understand and feel our emotions. So yeah, that when he said about the work and how important it was, and that's just what really hit my soul, if you like, and became very purpose driven. And sorry.
He's good. I mean, Dalai Lama's good at that. I mean, that's like it's
an incredible presence. I mean, it went on. We ended up, we shouldn't have been there. We were supposed to fly home that afternoon. That didn't happen. We ended up staying at his hotel. I met him in the morning in person. So many crazy things happened. And I was just like, okay, I'm on the right path. So yeah, interestingly, just a tiny little story, which I think is relevant about this whole piece as well. As I was building the business, and I kept saying to people, that Richard Branson been such a huge fan of mine, and I kept putting it out and kept putting it out, and then one day somebody over in the US invited me to go down to meet Richard Branson down in the Necker Island. And we were all set to go down there, very excited. And the guy who running it was like, I'm going to sit you next to Richard Branson so you can tell your story about the letter with your dad and this business and the impact you're having. And Richard's very interested in the whole not drinking movement and things like that anyway. That was all set up. So excited. I was going to FaceTime my dad. And then unfortunately COVID hit and my dad died. So it got cancelled. My dad died 2 months later. So it didn't happen. Wind forward another couple of years, and I kept sending this out. And I heard he was here, not far away, and actually turned up randomly at this hotel. And at that precise moment that I turned up to the hotel, I'm paraphrasing this rather long story, Richard was standing on his own in a parapet looking out at the view. And he could have been busy or anywhere, but I just walked up to him and told him my story, got quite emotional. He gave me a big hug. And he actually then posted about it on his social media, about meeting me and the impact that we're having in the world and the business. And so that was just another huge accolade and a stamp for the work that we're doing. You're muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's the drums. Sorry to hear about your father. And and Richard Branson is one of the gang. So or strongly suspected. So he has talked about thinking he has ADHD in a recent BBC news piece. They actually called me and said, we just want to make sure we're talking about ADHD in the right way, which is very good of them.
So great.
Because, Sir Richard's talking about it and we just want to make sure. And I had to say, I think pretty certain you've got a world exclusive there. Because although he's talked about having ADHD, there's a lot of places that say Richard Branson has ADHD, he's never actually said it.
No,
it's a lot of conjecture.
Dyslexia, all the time. He's massive about that.
And then the BBC person was like, "No, we've checked. No, I'm sure." I was like, "I think you should just go check." I got a call back. About 12 hours later, it was an afternoon call. I got a call back at 9 a.m. the next day saying, "Right, just to be clear, everything we talked about is confidential. And you mustn't talk about this until it's broadcast because, yes, you are right. It's never been talked about." So, he is. So he's part of the gang.
That's super cool. That's very cool.
So one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about was your your research and understanding into, and I know you said you didn't want to say the word, but I'm going to break the rule already, around addiction and the drivers. Yeah. And so something that winds me up rotten is that we as ADHDers getting advice and being given tools that just don't work for us.
Yeah.
Right. And actually then that adds to the pain for us, because we're then given,
you're like, oh, what's wrong with me?
When it's not and it's not work, but also if someone's recommended it to us, it's particularly a boss, then they think that we don't care, it gets put on us as not participating. And so one of the things that obviously you as someone with ADHD in this program, and I've witnessed it being so successful with someone I know with ADHD, that's one of the reasons I'm so interested in it, you've particularly done research into I think the 12 drivers you see them of addiction. I'd love to hear about those, and with particular, obviously, with that regard for ADHD. Over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. And I think this is when we sat down with the fundamentals. So my story was to do a year alcohol free, and then I went out for a drink after a year of alcohol free, and I got to a 5 deep bar at the rugby and was like, oh, sod waiting for that again. Ordered 2 pints, and the evening carried on like that. And the following day, I was throwing up in the toilet with my daughter beside me crying and my wife storming out the door. And that's really when I understood something fundamental, which is that abstinence does not equal control, right? And so many people are making this error of I'm just going to stop drinking for a month. In fact, they use willpower, they hold on to it for the month, they avoid their social circle, they cancel seeing their friends, they think it's boring, they stay indoors. All you're building is the psychological belief that alcohol is pertinent to your awesome, amazing, great life. So we actually have to change our beliefs, our thoughts, our patterns, our behavior around alcohol if you want to be able to control your drinking. And if you feel like you're at that place where alcohol has a little bit of control of you, just like every day I feel like I need to take the edge off, or perhaps I'm a binge drinker, I'm all or nothing. When I go in, the wheels come off. Depending on what kind of drinker you are, I mean, the ADHD is going to be far more likely to be the binge drinker. I'm making an assumption there. I'll need to look at the data. But
I can actually back that up somewhat. So not on alcohol, but on gambling. We see the propensity for gambling within the ADHD population versus the general population to be the same.
Okay.
The propensity to be a problem gambler, but be at the really serious, at the most serious end of most serious end of problem gambling, ADHD is much more prevalent.
Oh, absolutely.
So it means the main thing is if we have a problem with it, our problem is going to be bigger. Yep. And that may be what you're referring to.
100%. So exactly, not giving the coping mechanisms, not giving it all of that Christian stuff. So if you are at that juncture where you feel like it's got a bit of control for you, then if I play this forward for you, what happens is you could try and stop drinking, or you take a break, then you go back to problematic drinking again, and you get stuck in this loop, and abstinence does not equal control until you get to the place where it's like either you're going to be drinking and it's causing issues in your life, and in part of the honesty, if you are regularly drinking alcohol, we're not going to negotiate on this one, but it's causing issues in your life. Okay, that's just a full stop. Any amount. If you're regularly drinking alcohol, and if you're regularly drinking alcohol, it is causing issues in your life. It's a depressant. It causes anxiety. It's severely impactful on our brain. If you look at the latest in neuroscience, it's significantly impactful on our frontal lobe, where morals are made, rational decision making is made. Doc Arman, one of the top neuroscientists in the world, he says, how often do you want your frontal lobe to go on holiday? And I just love it, right? That's where you make good decisions. How often do you want that to go on holiday? So, but it's causing issues in your relationship because you only fight when you have a drink, right? And all of these things. So the truth is, if you're regularly drinking alcohol, it is causing issues in your life. And I think that's at that place where we try to get control, we try to do it, we try to get there, and ultimately it starts to get worse or doesn't really change that situation. And for some people, they're going to get to the place where it's like, okay, abstinence is your only option. Complete abstinence is your only option because you haven't averted this in the beginning. So I wanted to develop a preventative program. I wanted to develop something that wasn't really about addiction. It's about, hey, is compulsive behavior showing up in your life? Well, yeah, it is for all of us, right? Well, we understand what drives compulsion. And the thing is, you're not powerless. You are powerful. You can change those things. 100% guaranteed you can change the things that drive compulsive behavior in your life. So if you can change those things, then you can reduce this reliance and things like that on alcohol. So that's what we put together. We put together a program to help people see with exact clarity what is causing it. Now, this is not a program that guarantees that you can moderate or that anybody can moderate. I don't use that word moderation. Do you know why we don't use addiction? Because half the people run away the room. Addiction, that's not about me, right? I'm not an addict. I'm not one of those. So we don't use that word. We talk about compulsive behavior. Everybody resonates with compulsive behavior. And then we don't talk about, what was the other word? It's gone out of my head. That's the ADHD. Somebody remind me. Anyway, I'll move on. So
I don't know.
no, you didn't either.
I'm not sure you said, like, someone will comment, surely. But is that number one of the absence doesn't equal control?
That's just a fact. I know. I've had an abstinence program getting people to stop drinking for 28 days, 90 days, and 365 days for 9 years. And that for many people, for most people, just pure abstinence does not equal control. Yeah. So but for some people, it will. For some people, they can take a break and then they drink less. And there's all sorts of research on that. Actually, age is one of the best tools to help people get control of their drinking. As people get older, they drink less. And you know, some of the really interesting neuroscience around that is that that's the impact of alcohol on your brain and body. So here's some things that you will like. One of the first core drivers that we have to understand of our behavior when it comes to compulsion is our past experiences as a child that form our ego, and they are the patterns that we run every day. They're in the back of our subconscious, that you're not worthy, you're shit, you'll never amount to anything, you're not good enough, right? We all have these things that we say about ourselves. Now, they were formed, the vast majority of those were formed during our formative years as a child. And we don't even realize, but those are coming. We can call it trauma, but lots of people run away when you use the T word. They're like, I don't have trauma. I had a wonderful upbringing. Really sorry to break it to you, but childhood is traumatic. And that's a full stop, okay? We can do big T or little t. And it's just about the eye of the beholder. So a child who doesn't understand their emotions, doesn't understand what's going on, doesn't understand why daddy is shouting, or why mummy is frustrated, or why daddy's on his phone, right? And that is the thing that gets imprinted in the child. Okay, so trauma, that is one of the big core drivers for people. And most people are blissfully unaware at the fact that this stuff is controlling their behavior almost every day. It's in their subconscious and it's running around there. So this is one of the core things that we have to look at. Second, it
was one of the things I was interested when I listened to doing my research. Were you talking about trauma? Now I've got a memory moment.
We'll get there together.
I distracted myself by talking proudly about my research and then forgot my point. So back to you.
If you remember it, just interrupt me again. So the second one is stress, right? Now, stress is like the bullet train that drives our past experiences, our trauma, undealt with shit, our baggage. I've got to stop swearing. I'm so sorry. This is a professional place. I swear like a
honestly, you ruin our YouTube algorithm. Like it's really anti-swearing. Like when we got in trouble.
Don't do it again.
When I interviewed Heston Blumenthal last year, I actually started off with swearing because I wanted to engage with him really, really well. I thought it was a fun way to do it. It was a terrible idea.
Ratings.
Yeah.
So stress is the bullet train that drives those powerful feelings from our past into the now. So what we don't realize is a few things. First of all, that stress, obviously we have our stress of the daily stress. You're like, work is stressful. You're like, life is stressful. Family is stressful. I've got a lot of stress. Okay. Now, what we do is we get that stress. So our central nervous system goes into overdrive, is compounded. Our central nervous system is in fight or flight. Now, in our program, we actually use a really cool device to remotely monitor your central nervous system. And we show people in real time whether they're in fight or flight or recovery. And understanding their stress and seeing it in data is really key. Now, most people who are regularly drinking alcohol, they don't realize that not only do they get to the end of the day, that stress has built this ruminating thoughts and everything else because their central nervous system is being compounded all day, adding caffeine, all that kind of stuff. So they need a drink. In fact, we teach people some really simple math. A stressed out central nervous system, which does not get recovery during the day, will always require numbing in the evening. And this is even more so for ADHD. Like we are.
I spoke to someone who had got in that cycle too. They were struggling, they had ADHD, they were trying to get a diagnosis, and they were drinking to numb their brain, to calm themselves. And then to stimulate themselves, to help them in the day, they were drinking a lot of caffeine.
Yeah.
So you did the caffeine.
Caffeine.
It was as simple as these are legally available, basically uppers and downers. So the caffeine is
That's it.
the upper and the alcohol the downer. And I really felt for them. And then they were struggling to get support and help from the medical profession, who were like, you need to stop drinking before we'll get you help. And obviously the person has ADHD and is really struggling and not able to help themselves, needs help. And it was tough. I really, really, really felt for them.
Difficult cycle
Right,
for
back
sure.
to you. This is about you.
No, no, hopefully it's about all of you wonderful people out there, because hopefully you're resonating with this.
You did that really well to camera. It was beautiful.
Pro. So one of the things here is to remember as well that what we see in the latest science is that alcohol significantly increases the production of cortisol. If you're regularly drinking alcohol, then you train your system to create more cortisol. Cortisol is the fight or flight hormone. So you're suddenly sent into more fight or flight. So that's why when you drink in the evening, first of all, it's significantly impactful on your central nervous system. So you don't get the deep sleep, right? We show people in data using some really cool technology, as I said, that every time you drink, you're basically giving your central nervous system the flu, right? It's has to fight so hard to get rid of this poison. So you're trying to nod off to sleep, and it's great at knocking your head out and all the anxiety and all that stuff so that you can fall asleep, but you don't get the deep restorative sleep. Now, that means you wake up sluggish and a little bit tired the next day, but also your tank, your availability to handle stress, guess what? It's gone from this to that because you've been tired. And then when you add in alcohol and things like that, it goes to this. So now you only have this much ability to deal with stress. And when you get up to here, you blow the lid and you need to act out again. You need some kind of numbing. You need some kind of switching off. You've gone into mega hyperactive state, central nervous system absolutely going out in the clappers. So this is like a totally symbiotic mess when it comes to stress, driven majority by alcohol. And one of the things that we're seeing now, or we know, is that not only is that cortisol level higher in people who regularly drink, but even when they take a break from alcohol, like the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, it takes that long for their system to turn, that still the cortisol level is really high. So over time, and I'm talking about the years of drinking and the decades of drinking, we reduce our ability to deal with stress. So guess what? At the time when you need it, you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, right? You feel like life is so stressful. No, you're just drinking alcohol regularly, and it has stolen from you your ability to deal with stress. How about them apples? So, and this is even more compounded in ADHD. I talk to very successful business owners, high achieving executives, people who've gone out and driven very high to success. Guess what? Vast majority, ADHD. Of course they are, right? The amount of energy it takes, the amount of commitment it takes to go and rise to the top and build big businesses and be successful. There's no surprise. Lots of successful driven individuals have ADHD. And guess what? They have poor relationships with alcohol because that central nervous system is in overdrive all the time. There's another little part here, and that's that lots of ADHDers use being busy as a way to avoid feeling those emotions. Anything to distract from the stuff and the thing of the past. We talked about that in trauma. So stress really is so key. Now, the thing about it is we don't need people to go and become a lama. That's one of the Dalai Lama's colleagues, and sit in a cave for 4 years and meditate. That's not what you need, right? What we need is people to be able to deal with more stress. Now, alcohol significantly decreases your ability to deal with stress. So let's get rid of that. Next, meditation. We know this, right? Meditation builds the gap between stimulus and response. Meditation saved my life. The reason why 1 Year No Beer exists is because of meditation. This has now impacted hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, this organization. We've reached, honestly, billions of people with our marketing and our content. So we have had a huge impact in the world, and it all came from meditation. And I say every single person who comes onto our program, if there's one habit I can get you to create, one habit I can get you to do is to meditate and meditate regularly, to build that meditation practice. That's the one thing that will transform you the most.
Okay. This is the point which might get quite awkward. Oh my God, I hate meditation with an absolute passion.
Lots of ADHDers do.
Because I don't have a quiet brain.
But can I challenge? Can I offer you something with that?
It just makes me feel so inept, and
Yes.
I watch everyone else happily, and I'm just like, I can't do it. Like, I can't make my brain empty, and so like it puts me in a very bad place. Go on, over to you.
How many hours do you speak Mandarin?
No.
How many hours do you think it would take of practice before you were fluent in Mandarin?
I mean, you are literally picking one of the most difficult languages to learn,
and it's not nearly as difficult as finding a calm brain. So my question to you is how many hours would it take for you to learn to be fluent in Mandarin?
I've literally like
thousands. Let's say thousands, right? I'm a pretty slow learner. So, but my point is that people come along having had an entire life of a brain that runs amok inside their head. That brain has controlled you your whole life, right? It does. It's like this. Now, the thing is, you come along to something like meditation, which is a skill you've never learned, you've never practiced, and you do it. How many hours have you done it for? Just curious. I mean, how many hours have you tried to meditate?
Okay, I'm feeling awkward now.
Yes, I know. I like to hit people hard with my sledgehammer.
Not many hours.
No. And
but that's because yourself. Like it stops very quickly. Like this is not working.
This is what's wrong about the part of meditation. First of all, go back to the child. You want your child to learn Mandarin. Do you excuse my language, do you berate it if it doesn't know Mandarin after 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours? No, you lovingly care it and tell it to just keep practicing. And this is the shift that we have to do with meditation. Just practice. Now, if practice is the sole thing of putting in some headphones and pressing play for 10 minutes, okay? And during that practice, you're going to be terrible at it. So you're going to think about 100% everything else. You're going to think about shopping, home, work, all of those things. This amazing conversation we're having, hopefully you'll be thinking about it for hours to come. If that's the only thing you think about, you still won because you're practicing. And all you have to do is show up. And you just have to show up again and again and again and put the hours in. And I absolutely guarantee you, not only will you love meditation, but it will change your life.
Something that is very clear, actually, is there a group of people for whom meditation, they talk about it very clearly being life-changing.
Oh, yeah. The people who practice.
Well, that is potentially an annoying fact, but like it.
So I don't like giving people an out on meditation. So I'm pretty sorry. So is it, put in 200, 300 hours into it, and then tell me that you don't find amazing peace and amazing clarity. And this is coming from a strong ADHD. My parents would tell you it's impossible for me to sit down for 30 seconds. I can sit for 2 hours unguided and meditate no problem. And that has been so transformational for all of my ADHD symptoms for my life. Probably one of the sole factors enabling me to build such a successful organization is me being able to calm down my brain and see things. But I will give you an out, because there's a second one, which some people resonate better with, and that's breath work. It can be easier for you to focus on the breath and easier for you to get into a state in doing it. But it has to be one or the other. Okay. Regularly practiced.
It's terrible. It's very, very bad news.
I always tell people, and you may not like this, but that's what I choose to say to myself. I say, look, I'm sick. Now, you might not like that label, but I choose for it for myself. I say, I'm sick. And that means that my standard operation of way of being is for me to get more ill. And I will get more ill and more ill if I don't take my medication. And my medication is always exercise and meditation. And if I don't have those things in order, I go and blow up my life.
So it's a really interesting, insightful perspective that's the internal driver in you, is that perception, right? I'm sick and I have to take my meds and I have to look after myself. If I don't, I go down and I can see how it's really
blow up my life. I used to say I literally don the Rambo headcraft and come up with my Uzis, and I'm like, destroy my life, ugh, like this. And everyone around me is like, Ruari, oh my God, you're just tearing the walls down. And it's like, okay, he needs exercise and meditation. Oh, and sleep.
Yeah, like it's. I can now. We've got. I'm definitely keeping, like, in a very non-ADHD way. I'm keeping an eye on the clock, and so we do. I'd be keen to cover off any more those more core drivers.
Yes.
And then we have to start thinking about wrapping up, sadly.
Okay.
But,
so just to touch on to some more of these, what we have is we started on trauma, or the patterns that we're running. Stress is absolutely key. Then we're going to go into our environment. Our environment is one of the core parts. If you look around in your environment, especially with the relationship with alcohol, and everyone is laced, you're always in the pub, you're always around those things, it's going to be difficult for you to change. So we need to think about that environment being conducive to the behaviors that we want to have, where we're being, who we're spending time with, the things that we do. As an example, our career, we'll touch onto that again. Relationships. Now, relationships bent out of shape will drive the desire for compulsive behavior. So problems in marriage, things like that, you're like, oh, forget it. It takes up brain space. It eats into you. It adds into that anxiety and the thought process, and you want to have a drink again. And once again, all of this stuff is symbiotic, which means not only does relationships bent out of shape drive drinking, but often the drinking drives issues in the relationship. And around the circle goes, and it just feels like a mess. And then along from that is our connections. Now, you look at this wonderful talk by Johann Hari, Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong, and he says the opposite of addiction is connection. Now, so many of us, when we decide to stop drinking, we become more disconnected. We avoid our social circle, we cancel seeing our friends, we become disconnected. Now, unless you're a sociopath, you can't be disconnected. It's not inside human nature. So all that does is drive the desire to, like, I'm being disconnected. The only way I can be connected is to return back to the tribe. And this is a big mistake people make. We must make connections with people around us who are living how we want to live. And this is really, really key. Sleep. Sleep. There's a reason why they use sleep as torture. Seriously, we can't survive without sleep. When sleep is messed up, everything else is messed up. We have to start there. Now, we use a device, an Aura ring, to track our participants' sleep. We monitor them daily. If they've slept poorly, they get messages from our accountability team to say, look, you're going to be far more likely to desire compulsive behavior unless you mitigate that, because it compounds your central nervous system, sends you more likely into fight or flight from poor sleep. So, mental health, this is what we're sitting here talking about. Poor mental health is a big driver for compulsive behavior. We need to do the work. Again, symbiotic. Alcohol is significantly detrimental to our mental health. It is a depressant. So many people are going through life thinking that this is normal. It's not normal. You don't need to feel this way. Stop drinking and see what you can feel like just for a bit. I mentioned environment, meaning and purpose. And this is something I discovered for myself. In a windowless office, going by tube into a career I didn't enjoy. That was not what I was here on the planet for. I was here to help people. I was here to help people be bigger and better versions of themselves, help families, help parents, help friends. That is what my meaning and purpose is. So we need to be aligned with our meaning and purpose. Now, wait a second. If you've listened to this and you're like, oh God, I'm so far away from these things. How am I going to get to being aligned with my meaning and purpose when I've got my dead-end job that I don't love? Listen to me, because this is really important. Direction, okay? Direction is as important, if not more powerful, than destination. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you feel like you're not aligned to meaning and purpose, it doesn't mean you need to be there. You don't need to be in that meaning and purposeful job. It just means you need to be clear on the direction. And when you get clear on the direction that you want to give back, support people, help, you want to build a nursery, or you want to help save the planet, or eliminate hunger, just choosing that direction and going all in on it, starting to save some money to go for that future business, starting to meet people, join clubs, go in that direction, that significantly declines the desire, the need to numb out for compulsive behavior. So meaning and purpose must be aligned. And then our habits. Our habits are like our life raft. That's that exercise, meditation, breath work, but things like cold showers, so helpful, right? The dopamine release from cold showers is incredible. I'm just going to touch on that very simply because this is amazing for ADHDers. If you become a dopamine seeker, right, so you're used to using alcohol, what happens is it's a pleasure and pain. So every time you drink alcohol, you shoot up into pleasure. And then our system automatically recorrects because it must balance out. And it goes straight down into pain. And we feel miserable, excuse my language. And then a long, slow tail. And it slowly comes back up to normal again. Right? But whereas ice and cold showers and ice baths does the opposite. It's pain. It sends you straight down into pain, that dopamine of pain down here, which guess what? That means your system must recorrect. So it shoots you up into pleasure of the long tail, and that takes a long time to reset back to zero. So we can heal our relationship with alcohol. We can heal our minds. We lose weight, all sorts of improvement to our immunity with cold showers and ice baths. But habits is really key to changing your relationship with alcohol and removing compulsive behavior. Another big one is emotional regulation. We need to be able to deal with our emotions. We need to talk about them. We need to be able to express them and feel them and let ourselves cry and weep sometimes and it be okay. So understanding how to deal with our emotions is key. Most of us have not dealt with our past, don't like talking about it, and stuff down and pack down our emotions every possible case we can, whether that's binge watching Netflix to switch out or eating cake or drinking alcohol, anything to avoid those emotions. And that is always going to exacerbate that desire for compulsive behavior. We must learn to control our emotions. Self-esteem, self-worth. This is, again, symbiotic. When you change these other things, it will increase your self-worth and your self-esteem. So we start on the other real core drivers. And then the big one, finding calm. This is our mission. And this is the mission for all ADHDers. Trust me, you have to find more calm. We can do it even in our offices. I was here today doing breath work on the floor, had a great big tear up. It was awesome. We can do that in between our meetings. We can find more calm. We can drink less caffeine. We can drink less alcohol. We can find more calm in our lives. And when you do that, you're going to allow for more of this intuition, more of this power, more of this true self that doesn't need numbing out at the end of the day. So that's our 12 core drivers. And really, we take people through a program to understand where they are with those core drivers, why that's impacting them, so they get exact clarity on why they're unable to control their drinking, and more importantly, what they need to be able to do in order to get to a place where they can take or leave alcohol. And that's what we're up to.
Thank you. And actually, when you were talking about emotional regulation and its importance, and I could hear sort of metaphorical ADHD voices going, but like, I've got ADHD, like I struggle with emotional regulation. And then to your exact point of that's why you need to do more work on it, like, and having that. And then I thought about what you said about
stop packing it down, let it out.
So doing more work on it. And then I thought about like what you told us about meditation and needing to do more work on that. And I was like, oh, I hate him. I don't.
Well, you're going to meditate now.
And I was almost persuaded about cold showers, which is also terrible.
Ice baths and cold showers.
I'm not going there yet. Like that's a few steps.
Just the simplest thing is just do 30 seconds. Come on, you can do that. Go to the shower, turn it to cold, 30 seconds, do that. The thing about all of these things is it's tiny little improvements, tiny little steps. And every time you get a win, Professor BJ Fogg, Stanford University Behavior Change Design Clinic, he shows that we change behavior by feeling good, not by feeling bad. So don't get into the place where you're like, oh God, I drank again and I'm an idiot and everything else. Or this is too much for me and I'm going to fail. Just small, tiny little marginal gains, tiny habits, tiny tweaks. And that's what adds to massive change.
I do think that's a wonderful phrase about it. It's just change through good rather than bad. It's a nice way. It's a good point to look to finish on. So, which means we get to do the last question. That's the wrap-up question.
Just before we do, if anybody wants to check out the challenges, wants some support, they're thinking about changing their relationship with alcohol, they just want to jump into one of the challenges, I'll get this set up. But ADHD UK capitals, that'll get you for free. We'll just happily give you an access to the 28-day challenge for nothing. I would love to support anybody who's watching this and with ADHD. If you're interested in the other programs that we talked about, just reach out. We're at oneyearnobeer.com, all of those lovely things.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Thank you for doing that with the code. I look forward to hearing how that goes. Yeah, well, we're going to do the sort of thank yous and after. So last wrap up question. So, in terms of your ADHD, like, what's the worst thing that it's brought you, and what's the best thing? And if we can do worst first and then best last, so we end on a high note.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think at all about the question because you told me not to. So it's like you've just asked it for the first time now. The worst thing about ADHD, I guess, is all of that pain and suffering as a child, which I think was unnecessary. Had I been equipped with the tools, or my parents had been given the information to understand it a bit better, I'm lucky I had the love and the support. A lot of people don't have that. And I think that's the wonderful work that ADHD UK is doing, and you guys and Neil and Henry and things like organizations like this and open conversations and tools and things that didn't exist back then. So I think that's really, really wonderful. And I'm very passionate about supporting people with ADHD. What's the best thing that's happened? I mean, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, 1 year no beer. I mean, the lives that we have changed. I want to give you some examples. I've had a letter from a son, a handwritten letter from a son, saying, in essence, we've got our dad back, and it's thanks to you and your program. We used to read out these messages, my wife and I, in bed at night, just with tears in our eyes, like, look at what we're doing here. And then, I had a guy who stood on a bridge, and he'd written 2 notes to his family, suicide notes to his family. And he was like, I'm just going to see what these guys are about. I mean, he literally was sitting there thinking about jumping, and we run retreats, and he came out to the retreat. This is a guy who has successful businesses, multiple successful businesses, who was literally about to end it all. And he comes out, and now he regularly messages me just saying, you saved my life. So it saves lives. And I think that's an incredible thing to come from ADHD. And I'm grateful for the ADHD. I'm grateful for the struggles. I'm grateful for the pain and the things that happen in there, because it has been turned, thank you to that wonderful superpower of ADHD, into an incredible force for good that's helping and saving lives.
That is just wonderful to hear, and it's brought tears to my eyes thinking about it, and it's a glorious thing. You've been wonderful. I've enjoyed this so much. I've really.
Thank you for having me on.
No, well, thank you for doing it, and I look forward to my cold shower. Start at 30 seconds.
Meditation app. Get waking up. I love it. It's very good. Simple to follow. Waking up. Just follow each day. Sam Harris is really good. And just say to yourself, look, I'm going to get to day 40. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get to day 40. And it don't matter if I'm ignored, but do it first in the morning. Wake up. Just put those headphones on. Swing your legs out of the bed. Put them in. And that's it.
I have a 4 and a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I know. There's every excuse.
I can't sit
earlier.
Yeah. What are you? Okay, this is going downhill terribly at this point. Right? It's been absolutely wonderful. It's actually, more genuinely, as you talked about it, you start with small changes and you think about it, and it's the incremental change. And I'm going to look to do that. Oh God, I'm promising to do. It's going to hurt.
Yeah. I'm infectious.
This has been wonderful. Thank you very, very much. I've enjoyed it an enormous amount. And for people wanting to learn more, go to oneyearnobeer.com and so use the code ADHD UK for the challenge. And that's a wonderful thing. Thank you very much. That's it. So we're going to go back to the Conference program. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you.